Before you watch another YouTube video about someone explaining how to get results with paid Facebook ads, whether it's e-commerce, lead gen, digital courses, coaching, doesn't matter. You need to watch this video because you're probably being lied to if you don't understand this very important thing. I did e-commerce for years, and I remember watching all the gurus and people that I eventually found out were bullshitters that were posting these numbers that seemed like they were just printing money out of thin air, and you would follow their strategies, their recommendations, and it just didn't work for you. And now looking back, I understand why, because it was all of a facade. And I want to explain to you why return on ad spend, or ROAS, does not actually matter. It does matter when it's relative to the economics of the offer. Okay, but in general, like a 3 ROAS or a 4 ROAS, return on ad spend, which you'll see in the ads manager, you'll see on people's tracking dashboards. It looks sexy, and it can be, but it could also be a big fat lie. Okay, let me explain why. So let's say you have a $10 cost of goods, right? And then you have a, let's see, a price point of $20 price, or AOV, average order value, right? And this could apply to anything you sell. Well, what we're going to see now is, let's say you spend $10 to get a cost per purchase, right? So it costs you $10 to produce a $20 sale. But the problem with this math is that this and this are subtracted, meaning you profit 0. And this is before returns or anything else. Chargebacks, returns, you name it, right? Here's why this is a scam. In your ads manager, this is going to show a 2 ROAS. This is kind of like the baseline for a lot of the gurus, the course flippers, these coaches that hustled more or less during the boom of e-com dropshipping with Shopify, that they would put up stats like this, and then you would just psychologically assume that they're making money because a 2 ROAS makes sense. If you see like a 0.08 ROAS, it's not sexy because they're probably losing money. And I mean, I don't know how you would make that work, right? We could probably do the math on it and figure it out, but more or less, like, you're guaranteed to be losing 20 cents. So unless your cost of goods is nothing on the front end, you're at least losing money to get the customer, okay? But this is why ROAS is a big fat lie. So what you actually want, like, before you watch another video pitching on this crazy ad strategy and then the magic behind the numbers and like the cost caps and big caps, you always need to be asking, what is the economics around the offer, right? So affiliate is interesting because it's a little bit more cut and dry in the sense that you have a fixed payout and then you need to be above that, right? So you're not even thinking about ROAS, you're thinking about more of cost per click versus earnings per click. So, but it's really the same idea. There's margin baked into this. It's just when you run off of a blanket 1 ROAS or 1.5 or 2 ROAS or 3 ROAS, you don't actually know what the break-even point is because the economics behind the offer itself is always going to be different. Like, let's say I have something that sells for $100 price, right? And then I have a $20 cost of goods with shipping. Okay, that means this leaves me with $80 margin, gross margin, right? Gross margin. My handwriting is so bad with this. So when you calculate ROAS with this, your break even equals a 1.25 return on ad spend, right? So actually, if this person's running at a 2 ROAS, just like the first example I gave you, this person at a 2 ROAS would actually be printing money, like absolutely crushing it. okay? So this is why, unless you understand the unit of economics behind the offer, the ROAS you see in these YouTube videos is all kind of bullshit, right? Now, here's the beautiful thing about e-commerce or having your own offer. You can manipulate things on the back end, okay? And even now, today in 2025, you'll maybe see, let's say someone has the front end sale, they lose $20, right? So whatever the ROAS is to calculate that. But over the course of 6 to 12 months, they're getting $30 here, $30 here, $30 here, and then they're at $90, right? In gross profit after, well, actually no, 70, right? Because they took a loss on the acquisition, regardless of what the ROAS is. I mean, they could have had 2 ROAS there, right? We just reverse engineer the math to it. But this is why you need to be very careful when you watch YouTube videos and you're like, wow, that looks awesome. That strategy sounds so cool. Unless you understand what's happening on the back end here, like this matters, but generally like the ROAS behind it does not matter unless you see the true numbers off the LTV and then also off of the front end acquisition. But this is cool. Like this is how, not so much as affiliates and lead generators, we don't really capture a lot of the lifetime value or the back end value, but the pricing on the front end is typically baking in margin on the back end, often a very greedy margin, to be honest, right? So like a lot of auto insurance buyers want to pay around $10 per qualified lead. Well, the economics behind that policy and then the cost they pay out to the agent, and maybe like there's some call center costs baked in there for the guys closing, right? So there are additional fixed and variable costs to lead gen offers, but generally they're baking in like a pretty big margin, often, but not always. Sometimes they're not as much, okay? With a lot of the legal campaigns that I run, there's massive margin. There's like a 10x on what they pay me, and you know that feeds the attorney, and a small cut goes to whoever's doing intake or whatever added costs are in between, or if they co-counsel, then they split it, right? But this is why ROAS is bullshit. So before you watch your next video on Facebook ads and you're looking at it like, wow, this guy's getting like a 3 ROAS or a 4 ROAS for a brand or maybe his own offer, because I watch all these guys. Some people know what they're talking about, but a majority are full of shit. You need to make sure that you can't really trust what you're seeing unless they show you the back end economics behind it, the cost of goods with shipping and return rates and everything, which pretty much they never will. Okay. So also, we test a lot of big cap strategies, and you'll see experts from agencies, like agency owners, talk about big caps and how to use them. The thing is, if the realistic, let's see if I can make this a little bit fatter. Nope, that's a highlighter. We will, there we go, nice. So let's say that we are, let's say our break even, just like to give big caps or like more cost controls. A lot of agency gurus online float content around this, but you got to keep in mind a few factors. Just like the ROAS is a false number in a sense, like it has less meaning than you would assume when you see a higher ROAS. So it doesn't mean they're profitable, right? You also need to realize with big caps, for example, they're like, oh, it's easy. Just put, if like based on like your economics, a $50 big cap makes sense. If you can afford to get a $50 purchase on the front end because of the back end economics, or even the front end with the back end economics, then you set the big cap there. You maybe increase it by 20%. So it's $60 big cap. And then it's just like magical, and you just have this CBO, and you put ad set here with like 15 creatives, ad set, and it just magically keeps pushing volume, right? Well, the problem with this, if you don't have control of the back-end economics of the big cap, which a lot of times with affiliate offers, you don't, well, the realistic probability of reaching a $10 payout, one most likely most creatives will bring volume and spend at a $20 payout or $20 cost per lead. If you could afford that, these strategies don't work. So just keep that in mind when you watch these videos, and they give strategies and recommendations on ROAS or e-com focused offers that have back-end economics. There's lifetime value. This is all factored in. A lot of times it's just not going to work for lead gen, for pay-per-call, right? So, but you should always test it, okay? We always test it. But typically we find, like if it's like auto, I love giving auto insurance, as everyone kind of understands what it is, and also everyone probably, a lot of people struggle with it. If you're getting paid $10 cost per lead, or CPA, this is what you get paid, right? And then you run a bunch of ads. Realistically, you're going to be in the $15 to $20 range, right? So if you put a big cap here of 20, or sorry, of 10, right? Because this is what you, this is your break-even point. You're going to get a little delivery, or like 0. That's zero. Doesn't look like it. Yeah, so just keep that in mind when you're watching recommendations from YouTubers, even me. Like I try to show as much of the numbers as possible. I mean, typically our strategies are focused around just running an acquisition, not baking in the lifetime value. But if you have the opportunity to manipulate the back end to increase the average order value on the front end, to basically spend more to acquire the customer, then all those things matter, right? Then all those strategies that you see are worth testing. But just keep in mind, ROAS is a deceiving metric and is only relative to the offer that you're running when you understand the unit economics, the back end math, and how everything bakes out. So just keep that in mind. If you have any questions around ROAS or how to improve your results with Facebook ads, drop a comment below. See you in the next video.